Something just leaked that completely changes the direction of the Pixel 11 Pro. And honestly, if this turns out true, Samsung might not be leading display tech anymore for the first time in years. Because here's the crazy part. The Pixel 11 Pro might be getting Samsung's newest OLED technology before Samsung even uses it in its own top-tier phones. And that alone should make you pause. So let's break it down properly. Reports coming out of Korea, echoed by supply chain coverage from outlets like the LE, suggest that the Pixel 11 Pro lineup could debut Samsung's next-gen M16 OLED panels. Now, that doesn't sound emotional at first, until you compare it with what's actually in the market right now. Samsung's current flagship phones are still sitting on M14 panels, so if Pixel jumps to M16, that's not an upgrade. That's a full generation leap skipped ahead. Not one step forward, two steps ahead, while everyone else is still moving normally. And here's where it starts getting uncomfortable for the industry, because this same M16 display tech is also rumored for future iPhones, including the iPhone 18 Pro models and Apple's upcoming foldable project, sometimes referred to internally as Ultra. But those devices are expected later, not first. The Pixel 11 Pro is the one showing up earlier in the timeline. So for a moment, just imagine this. A Pixel phone launching with display tech that Apple and Samsung are still waiting on. That's not normal. Now let's talk about what actually changes in real life, because specs alone don't matter unless you feel it in your hands. M16 OLED panels are expected to push higher peak brightness levels, smoother power efficiency curves, and improved color accuracy that doesn't just look vivid, but more natural and controlled. Early estimates suggest brightness could comfortably exceed the already insane flagship range, possibly pushing over 3,000 nits in peak HDR scenarios. And that matters more than people think, because that's the difference between a phone that struggles under sunlight and a phone that looks like it has its own light source outdoors. But here's where the story takes a weird twist. Samsung isn't slowing down either. They're preparing a massive foldable push, with devices like the Galaxy Z Fold 8, Flip 8, and even a new ultra-wide fold concept that's being quietly tested. Reports suggest a late July reveal window, possibly in London, which would be a shift in strategy for them. But here's the uncomfortable detail nobody is saying out loud. Those foldables might still be stuck on older M13 grade panels, so you could end up in a situation where a Pixel 11 Pro and even future iPhones are using newer display tech than Samsung's own foldables. That's the kind of irony that doesn't happen often in this industry. And now everything starts connecting, because if Pixel 11 Pro really launches with M16 OLED, it's not just about looking better, it changes perception, it changes positioning. It turns Google from a software-first phone maker with good cameras into a company that's suddenly leading in hardware categories nobody expected. But here's the real tension point. Will you actually notice it in daily use? Because this is where things get tricky. Specs might show massive improvements, marketing will definitely highlight them, but real-world impact is always the final judge. Smooth scrolling, outdoor visibility, battery efficiency, that's where it either becomes legendary or just another spec upgrade people forget after launch week. And that brings us to the uncomfortable question. If the Pixel 11 Pro really does launch with display tech ahead of Samsung and Apple, does that actually change your mind about Pixel? Or is it still just interesting but not enough to switch? Because if display leadership shifts here, even slightly, it doesn't just affect one phone, it reshapes the entire flagship conversation for 2026. So I want your honest take. Does this kind of upgrade finally make Pixel 11 Pro feel like a must-watch device for you? Or is it still not enough to pull you away from Ultra and Pro Max territory? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'm genuinely curious where people stand on this. And if you want more breakdowns like this before the hype cycle takes over, subscribe, because this year's leaks aren't just upgrades, they're starting to feel like shifts.